Hello, hello. May peace and blessings be with you. If you are here with me live, say hi, say salam. I hope that you're having a fantastic day so far. I was trying to stay on brand last week, and because we were talking about Google Sheets, I thought it would be a great idea to wear green. So I did. It becomes a little bit challenging when you're talking about Google Sheets for 2 weeks in a row because when I was in my closet this morning trying to get ready, I realized I don't have very many green clothes, especially in this green that Google Sheets uses. So we are improvising a little bit. I'm wearing a black dress and I'm wearing the same green hijab, and I think it counts. So we'll make it work. Okay, so as part of today's session, I want to cover how you can take it to the next step. Use the two foundational blocks we've already learned about, which is Google Forms and Google Sheets, and how you can integrate the two together to create a beautiful workflow for yourself that helps you stay organized and keep hopefully a lot of messages out of your Gmail inbox or any other inbox that you use. So one of the roles that I serve in is the treasurer for my mosque. And as part of that, I am receiving requests from a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. Sometimes via email, sometimes via text messages. Sometimes people just, are giving me the receipts by hand. So I was really looking for a centralized process or a streamlined way of keeping things in one place and still be able to get through all the tasks that I need to get through with that role. So I utilized Google Forms and Google Sheets to create that workflow. I'm going to cover that and show that to you today. And hopefully you can use the same thing for your business or, one of your roles as well. And hopefully it's super helpful. So the way that works is on the front end, we have an input form that we're sharing the link of that form with anyone and everyone who needs to send you a request. So in my case, it's a check request, reimbursement request, payment request, donation. Sometimes people need some additional information about their donation, things like that. So pretty much I'm using that form for all of those things. When people submit an entry on the back end, it goes to a Google Sheet, just like we saw last time, or I think 2 or 3 weeks ago in one of the videos. I will link all those videos below so you're not lost and you can just follow along. And we're pretty much going to cover the whole process today as well. So even if you are not looking at the previous videos, no worries. You can start fresh today and just learn it as we go. So on the back end, it becomes a Google Sheet that has all the new entries that are coming in. In addition to that, you can add additional columns to it and use those for your tracking purposes, right? So have a column for what's the status of this request. Is it in progress or have you completed it? Are you stuck on it? Things like that. And also if you need to add any comments or anything like that to make notes for yourselves and stuff, so you can keep track of that in the same spreadsheet. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay, so this is where we were last week. We talked about the team task tracker. So I'm going to just double click on it so it opens it in a new window. And this is what we had created together. Just a super simple spreadsheet that you can use for adding tasks, assigning owners, keeping track of status. We added some color coding using conditional formatting. So once a task gets completed, it automatically colors it in green and strikes through the record. If it's in progress, it's yellow. If it's not started, it's blue. And if we're stuck, we highlight it in a red color. One thing I forgot to mention last time is adding a date column. So a lot of times, especially when you're working with teams, you want to assign ownership and also give them a target deadline, a target completion date. A lot of times people call it the due date. I personally like calling it target completion date because we want to try to stay ahead of our due dates. So this is like my internal target completion date that I want to complete a task by, or I want my team to complete a task by. You can certainly add another column for due date as well if you want to keep track of both, right? So when would I like to have it done by, when it's really due. And so I've seen sometimes people even have a third column where they say actual completion date. So if you are concerned about performance for your employees or something like that, you can certainly add the other column as well, so that you're, keeping people accountable. For my purposes, I am not a whole lot concerned with the actual completion dates. So we're just using the target completion dates to keep track of what we're doing. Okay, so this is where we were. I'm going to go back to our Google folder. Anywhere in the white space, I'm going to right click and hover my mouse over this Google Forms, click on this little triangle arrow, and this time we're going to create a blank form. It's going to open it up in a new window. We're going to call it, let's see, team. We can say requests, team request tracker, something like that, right? You can call it whatever you want. Okay, so basically what I need from the input I need is really the task description, right? Or action description, task description, whatever you want to call it. We want to make this field required for sure. And Google is very smart. As soon as I typed the word description, it converted it into a paragraph type of field. So that is beautiful. I'm going to come over here, click on this little plus sign, and we're going to add another one. So I also would like to ask people, maybe say requested by, or we can say date requested by, right? Date requested by. By what date do they want me to finish this task? Basically, right? I'm asking my end user to provide this. And again, because it's a date field, Google is very smart. It automatically added the date, and it's saying it's going to take input in this format: month, day, year. And I'm not going to make this one a required field, because sometimes people are not sure, and sometimes you get stuck. When do they need the response by? Sometimes the answer is yesterday. I wanted this done yesterday. So that is not going to be helpful to our workflow. So we can just not make it a required field and leave it like that. One other thing I love doing for all of my input forms, even if it's a simple form for registration for an event or something like that, I always like adding a comments field, because that way you're giving your end user an opportunity to send you a message, and they don't have to send you an email or a text or something outside of this to reach out to you. So I pretty much would always add a comments field. Of course, I don't make it required, and I always leave it as a paragraph type of field. So essentially, these are just the three fields that you need. If we look back at our tracker, we had a task number, which we will add later to this form. We're actually not going to add it to the form. We'll add it to the spreadsheet on the back end. So the most important things are task description and when do they want to have it done by. I am keeping these few fields off of it for now, who they're assigned to and what the status is, because that is for me to fill in later. If I am assigning work to my team, right? If it's just me, then of course all the tasks are going to get done by me. So we don't even essentially need an action owner at that point. But if you have a team, then basically whoever is assigning the work should be filling that in. If for any reason you already want your end user to select who they want their request to go to, you can certainly include a drop down and have them fill that in. So depends on your use case. So if you were to do that, you're basically just going to come in here, click on the little plus sign and add a new field. This time you will pick a drop down field just like that. And you'll give it option. You'll say person A, person B, person C, and you can give it a title for this question. And you can either make it required or not required. It's totally up to you. So since I don't need it, I'm going to just delete it from here. I'm going to hit this little trash can button to delete it. So these are just the 3 things that I need, and that's it. I hope I am clear so far. If I'm not, if you have any questions, please let me know and I can answer those. Okay, so once this is done, I'm going to hop over to settings real quick. Before we go to settings, let's just go to responses first. So last time we'd clicked on the 3 dots in the top right corner, the ellipsis to go to a destination, all that good stuff. This time we can just simply click on the link to sheets. And instead of creating a brand new spreadsheet, we can add it to an existing spreadsheet if you want. So let's try that. I'm going to click on this select existing spreadsheet, hit select. And from here, it's going to show me all the different things in my drive. I'm going to click on this team task tracker, which is the file where I want it to go. And I just hit select. So now what it has done is it has created a form responses tab in here in the same spreadsheet as this one. So we don't need 2 open, so I'm just going to close one of them. Okay, so essentially it has given us the columns that we added and 1 extra column, which is our timestamp. So for any request that comes in, it captures, Google captures the date and timestamp when that happened, which is also super helpful when work is coming in and you want to work in a first in, first out type of manner. So this is super helpful. Okay, so now let's add a couple more columns, just like we had over here. If you have multiple people working together, then of course you're going to need an action owner column. And then 1 more is status, right? Those are for sure. I also like adding a notes thing for the team. And you can be very specific and say it's internal team notes or something like that, right? If we're learning something through taking care of these tasks, I don't want that data to be lost. So I want my team to, let me know if there was a hiccup in the process or something like that. I want that documented so that, when we're improving our processes, we take a look at that as well. Okay, so what I like doing is generally I would remember like how we made the titles bolded. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to click on the first cell, keep my shift key down, and click on the last cell here. And now I'm going to click on this B button to bold it. And I'm also going to do this one more time, this time only through here. These are the fields that automatically came through in the form, right? So let's give them a nice, beautiful color. Let's make it this bright blue. Of course, now text is not visible, but it's all right. We'll make the text white. Okay, so these were the fields that came in from the form, and these are the fields that we created. So I usually like coloring this in a different color. So I'm going to just make it light gray, just so that anybody who's looking at it knows that there's something different about these fields, right? So that's the intent there. And if you want to add a task number column, you can add that. And then, of course, we'll color that light gray as well. Which gray did I pick? I think it was this one. Okay. So we will say number. And I want the font color for this one to be black, just like the other ones. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. All right. Let's go and test it out. We are going to... we can just click on the preview and test it, or let's just do something. Go to settings real quick. We want to make sure all of our settings are set in a proper way. We're not going to make it a quiz. We're not collecting emails from people who are responding. This is not restricted to just my organization. I'm going to share this form, the link for this form, with everyone. So I'm going to turn this one off. I'm not limiting it to 1 response. So basically turning off all of these. Okay, presentation. Show progress bar doesn't really matter because it's just one form. If you have multiple pages to your form, then this is a good idea to show your end users. Okay, so you can customize the message if you want. This looks perfectly fine to me as well. Your response has been recorded, or your request has been or we can thank them. Thank you for your request. We will process it within, you can say 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. We will process it. Or we'll say we'll be in touch within 48 hours or something like that, right? Okay, so let's hit save. And I like keeping this one on to submit another response, just in case, they have more things to submit. You don't want them to have to go back and, refresh the browser and all that. Just give them the option. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to disable autosave. None of this we need to do anything with. Okay, so the form is ready. I'm going to hit the preview button, this little eye up here. Okay, so this is basically our test round. So task description, we're going to say task 1. And I'm going to say have it done by Saturday. Let's say comment, I love life. Submit. Okay, so we have submitted this. And if we come in here, you're going to see how it has added that over here, right? So now I can go in and I can say, okay, I want this task to be assigned to Timmy. We talked about you can also create a drop down if you want. And we can also assign status. And for this, we definitely used a drop down last time. So let's build that drop down. Okay, so we're going to go to data validation. Okay, so I was in data. Under the data menu, I clicked on data validation, and I'm doing it fast. I hop in and out of different programs between Excel, Google Sheets, Smart Sheets, a whole bunch of other things. So sometimes I can't remember where the option is. So sometimes you'll see me, like a crazy human being going through different menu options, but it's okay. It's there. I know the approximate location. So if I can't find it in one click, I'll get there in a few clicks. So no worries at all. Okay, so data validation. As soon as we click on that, then it's going to show us this menu over here. This is good. Drop down is good. And we can say not started, in progress, and another item. We said stuck. And we also said complete. Right, those were the 4 options. So let's go with that. Advanced option, show help text for a selected cell. We talked about this. We can say, please select a value from the dropdown. And what to do if the data is invalid, show a warning or reject the input. If I'm doing a dropdown, 95% of the times I'm going to select reject the input. Every once in a while, I allow them to enter a response. And we'll talk about it in a future video when I would do that. But for the most part, you want to just not take the input because you're giving them a dropdown and you want them to make a selection out of those. Okay, and then display is good. You can give it colors if you want. You can select different colors if you want. I'm going to skip that step for now because we already covered it last time. My little microphone is blocking my screen. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Done. Okay, so now we can say not started yet. And then if there are any internal notes, we can add that. Okay, so the one thing we don't have here is row task number. As we go through more, we'll have more. So there are a couple of ways of doing that. You can just start the first one with just entering 1, and then every time in the future, when you have new rows coming in, you can add a formula for it. And you can say add one to the row above. There is a better way of doing that, which is using the row function. So to use any function in any cell in Google Sheets, you want to hit equals. As soon as you hit equals, now it's expecting a formula. So for this one, it's basically row. And if I type it in, you can see that Google is giving me a little helpful hint over here. It says, do you mean row number of a specified cell? Yes, that's what I mean. So if I just click on that, it's asking now which cell. And if I don't give it a range or anything like that, I can just say this and it'll give me the row number of that row that I'm on. How cool is that? It's pretty cool. Okay, so if you get the row number just like that, it's giving you a 2 because there is a row above it. I'm going to just say -1, right? Because it's always going to be -1 of the row that you're on because you're basically skipping the header row, right? So if I copy down, same thing, right? It'll just basically keep copying it down. So in normal spreadsheets, if it's not a form, you can totally do this and copy it down, even if there's no text there. That would be fine because you're entering the input yourself in the other columns. If you do this with Google Forms, though, what happens is the form thinks that the row is taken. So when a new entry comes in, it doesn't put it on this row. It's actually going to put it on this row. I know, it's strange. Either this row or it might actually put it above both of these. Let's test it. Let's test it together, see what happens. Okay, so I'm here. I am going to click on submit another response. We'll say test 2, and I'm not going to give it a date or comments or anything like that. Just hit submit. Okay, let's see. Where did it land? There we go. So it put it right after the first row. And see, this is where our formula was. So it doesn't like that. So this row still will not get a row number in this instance, right? So essentially what we want to do instead is leave. So add a test row. After creating this, add a test row. Of course, you're going to test it, right? So just add a test row, add this formula, and then every time you come in, then you can just copy it down. Copy down the formula after the row is done. So after we have a bunch of tasks submitted, then when you come in to assign, you can just give it a row number at that time and we'll just, make it work. It's a little clunky, but it's okay. There is scripting and things like that you can do on the back end so it auto populates when the form entry comes in and all of that, but that complicates things. And I like simple solutions. So it's, a little bit of copy paste for us. And the way we copy it down is if you look at this cell you see how my cursor is changing as I am in different places on this cell. So if I'm just hovering anywhere, it's a little arrow. If I go near the bottom right edge of this cell, it's turning it into a plus sign. So wait until it turns into that plus sign. That is when you want to grab it. You want to click on it, hold. Okay, that was not supposed to happen. That is my jumpy mouse. Okay, so you want to click and hold and drag down, and that's it. And it'll copy down the formula. And this works in pretty much all the spreadsheet tools, Excel, Google Sheets, all that. Okay, so I am going to delete these because I don't really need this at this time. We are going to copy down later after the rows get filled in. So to delete a row, you just basically select the row from the left over here. You can be anywhere over here in this column, and you just click on that and it'll select the row. You can right click and you can hit delete row. You do it like that. If you want to delete multiple rows at the same time, you're going to click on the first one. So let's say nothing is selected. You're going to click on the first one. You're going to keep your shift key on your keyboard down, and then you're going to click on the last row where you want to delete the range up to. And now you're going to right click and you're going to say delete rows 4 through 7. and it'll delete it just like that. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. I hope this is not confusing. Let's take it a step further. Last time we said, depending on the selection we make, the row changes colors. Let's do that again. This time, I'm gonna just select a range. I'm gonna say column A through H, and we're going to format, going to go to format, and click on conditional formatting. With that, it's going to start it's selecting some things automatically. I'm going to make some changes here. I'm going to say select column A through H. So I got rid of 1 and whatever number it had, I think 98 at the end of this one. I got rid of that. I said go from A through H. Apply whatever this rule is I'm about to build. Apply it from column A through column H. So let's talk about this real quick. So column A through column H, that is what I had selected. Just by selecting the first column, keeping a shift key down, and then selecting the last one. That's how we had done that. Okay, so now we are going to go back to conditional formatting. All right, so this was a rule we were trying to build. There we go, it's back. We're gonna say, we're not gonna do this is not empty, because that is what it's coloring it by. If you look at this, I'm gonna just get out of this for a second. Okay, so if you can see what it's doing right now, automatically by default, it has set this conditional formatting rule. It's saying apply to this range where the cell is not empty, make it green, which is what it's doing right here. So any cell that is not empty, it's making it green. We're going to change that. We're going to use a custom formula, which is at the all the way at the bottom, and we're going to say apply this formula to this column, which is column E. I'm going to say E, let's say E1, E2. You can say E2 equals, what was it? Not started? First one. If it's not started, cell E2 is not started, then we want to make it light blue. Right? This is a little bit confusing. Okay, let's see. Oh my gosh, I need more coffee. It's not column E, it's column E, F, G. It's to the right of F, not to the left of F. Okay, so it's E, F, G. So it's column G. Let's see, G2. This is a little bit silly, and I'm going to try and explain. Okay, so normally you would say whichever row this was on, that would be, all right, I'm going to scroll over so we can see what we're looking at. Okay, so normally we say this is a cell that we're checking the formula in, right? So that would be G2 would be the cell. If it's not started, color the row. When it's a spreadsheet created using a form, Google basically uses the first row. It's basically a header row that is blocked by Google, so you can't really it's not numbering it basically. Even though it's numbered, it's here, but it's not numbering it. So because of that, it is saying it's considering this row for this formula purposes to be the first row. I hope that makes sense. What happens if we don't even give it a range? No, we have to give it something. Okay. And then if I don't put this $sign here, remember we also talked about this. So if I don't put this $sign here, it doesn't know what I mean. So it's basically just going to the first column it's seeing in that row, and it's just coloring that, which is a little silly, but I'm going to add the $sign back. So $sign G1, not G2 in this case, because it's this header row is getting skipped by in this example because it's a sheet created from a form. That's the only explanation I can think of, because it works every other time, right? For the other spreadsheet where we had to give it the first cell of the range, right? So this is how it's going to be. So I'm going to just hit done, and we are good. We built this rule. So it's automatically going to apply it to everything. So even if this is not started, it'll basically, as you add new rows, it'll just keep applying this format to it. Okay, so we're done with this one. Should we build one more rule? Because I know it was a little bit clunky, a little bit confusing. So let's do this one more time. Okay, so I am coming in here. I am selecting column A by hitting this A button here, keeping my shift key down on my keyboard, then selecting H. So it's selected the whole range, going to format, going to conditional formatting, adding a new rule. Automatically, it's going to say A through H98. I'm going to just leave it as is. I was changing it, but then I see that when we go back, it changes it back. Even if I take out from 1 to 98, it still puts it back. So we'll leave it. Hopefully it's smart. When it gets all the way down to 98, hopefully when we go to 99, it'll know we need to keep going. If it doesn't, you let me know. Okay, so custom formula. We are going to say pretty much the same thing. Equals $G1, not 2 in this case. And this time we're saying if it's in progress, then make it a light yellow, super light yellow. This is a beautiful light yellow. Okay, so it's in progress. If I close out of this, let's test it. If I say in progress, there we go. It's coloring the row yellow. So just like that, you can build 2 more. Stuck would be red, and then complete would be green. And for complete, we also picked the strike through, just like we did for this one. And I'll definitely link that video below as well so that you have more detailed explanation. Okay, so this is pretty much how you can utilize a form with a spreadsheet on the back end to keep track of all your tasks and keep things out of your inbox. I'm going to show you one more thing before we get done. So remember in the question, so for the most part, this should suffice in what you're requesting people for. But every once in a while, you also need them to send you attachments and things like that, which was the case for my example. So I just added one more field in here, and I said, this one is going to be a file upload. So this is letting me know, let respondents upload files to Drive. That is what I want. Files will be uploaded to the form owner's Google Drive. Respondents will be required to sign into Google when file upload questions are added to a form. Make sure to only share this form with people you trust. So literally the files are going to get dropped on your Google Drive. So you want to make sure that you're only sharing the form with the people you trust, because you don't want some random videos or random things showing up on your Google Drive, and that will take up a lot of space very, very quickly if you open that gate. So be very careful when you do that. I definitely trust all the people that I share my form with. So, all right. So for the question title, you can say attachments. I think most people understand when we say attachments what that means. You can also say which file types you will allow. So if you don't want any videos, and I would say no videos for the most part, you can say documents, spreadsheets, PDFs, presentations, drawing image, and then leave off audio and video if you don't want that. So, and check all the boxes that you want. It also asks you what is the maximum number of files that you want them to be able to upload. 5 is usually a good number. If it's more than 5, just let them submit 2 forms. But if you really think it's going to be a lot of small documents and things like that, you can even go up to 10. But then it says there is also another overall limit, so which is it can only accept up to 1 gig of files. So once it reaches the 1 GB, the form will stop accepting responses. So you also want to be careful with this. So I usually like just making it 5. and then max limit for each file to be 10 megs. 10 megs is pretty good size. If you have lots of large documents, maybe you can consider changing it, but I would say 10 megs is fine. Watch what happens if I do this. So if I say 1 gig and I say up to 5 files, which means 5 gigabytes space is needed, right? For this, even for one form submission. So this is saying automatically saying that it's not accepting responses because you have exceeded a single response can exceed the 1 gig total size limit. So you can click on this change button over here and it'll show you where it's setting the limit right here. So you can increase that, but I feel like 1 gig is plenty of space for accepting form responses and things like that. So I'm going to go back to question and I'm going to change this to say 10 megs per file, 5 files for each one. And there you have it. So you can also click on this view folder to see where it's storing it. As soon as I click on that, it's going to create a subfolder for us on the Google Drive, and all the responses will go there. The files will get dropped there, and you'll also receive a link in your form with that file. You can literally just click on a link and go to the file. You don't even need to mess with where this location is and all that. If you're accepting multiple files, then it's going to put them all in the same cell. I think they're separated either by comma or semicolon, but that's fine. Just look at that, see the end of it, and you can just hit enter and it'll create a hyperlink there as well. Okay, so that is pretty much all what I wanted to cover in today's session. I also want to talk about how to create a short link for it and a QR code and all that jazz. We'll cover that in a future session because I feel like we've already been here for a long time. I'm just going to take a look at chat to see if anything came in. I don't really see any response or anything like that. So we'll basically just talk about what we're going to do next time when we're together. We are going to start looking at Google Calendar, show you how you can schedule meetings. We'll just start with Google Meet, and then maybe in another week we'll talk about Zoom meetings, how to integrate Zoom with Google Calendar and all that. And then we'll down the road also talk about Outlook Calendar, because I know that some people are using Outlook and some people are using Gmail for business. So we'll cover both. And I hope you have a fabulous rest of the week. Until we meet again, I want you to know that you are a blessing and the world needs you now. Thank you.